Good evening and welcome to After Dark with Dr. Mike. I'm Dr. Michael Coots, and the man across the table from me is Mr. Marty Munez, the genius behind the machine, the man who makes it happen. How you doing, Marty?
Good. How you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. You know, we won't have Gwen here tonight to do the hot spots, our news, so we're just going to get into the show. However, there is one peculiar bit of news that I heard today, and I swear, man, if you start being the devil's advocate, I'm going to come across the table and hit you with this water bottle, okay? It's just something that's weird, that's all. It's no big deal. Because I really couldn't give a shit less about gay marriage, lesbian marriage. Hey, more power to them. That's their lives, not mine. But what I read on Yahoo News today and Huffington Post and a couple of other places was that this dude married his son. A father married his son in a legal wedding ceremony. So I don't know how one might take that. I mean, love is love, companionship is companionship, or is this just a way to legalize decades of incest? And we're not talking about the Duggars here, where you knock out about 5 or 6 of your siblings, okay? So I'm just talking about a father-son thing.
Right.
Not a brother and all of his sisters. Did you hear what he said?
No.
Duggar?
No. What did he say?
Oh, they had him on the news. He was a few years ago. He said that when he was going out with the woman that he married, that one of his younger sisters had been chosen as the, what do they call it, chaperone?
Yeah.
To make sure they didn't do anything that they weren't supposed to do. A little late for that. But anyway, so the father said they were going to go to the movie. So the father said, well, you can't take your younger sister as a chaperone because you have to be a certain age to get in the movie. So the father chose one of the brothers and one of the other sisters to go with him.
Yeah.
And Josh Duggar said, well, it was like a double date. I was with my girlfriend and they were together. After all, this is Arkansas. I was like, wow, man, I just about dropped it right there. You know, you joke about it after you molest 5 or 6 little girls. One, to this day, is still a minor. I'm talking about a coal miner. I'm talking about an underage minor, okay?
Oh, okay.
It gets confusing, you know. Somebody says you had sex with a minor. I was like, well, that was before or after he came out of the mine and took a shower. You know what I'm saying?
Right. It's like, did they do it with the little hat with the light on it? And
it all depends. If you're a spelunker or a, besides being a spelunker, a sphincterluncter. Right.
And it's like, do you have any stamina after you have black lung?
Oh, well, that's
or are you question.
No, if you lay on your back and let them do all the work.
Right.
Well, this was like a really bizarre turn to a start of a show, huh?
Yeah.
So what other kind of perversities can we get introduced here? Okay, tonight we're going to talk a little bit about, let's see, the last show we did with Gwen, we talked about aliens.
Yeah.
And life forms from different planets. And I think tonight we could talk about death, spirits, demons, and the different dimensions of life and beyond life. And that reminds me, you probably know, since you're like one of the smartest people on the planet, but one of the famous physicists said, it's a peculiar thought to think that we are the only living creatures in this entire universe, or that there could be other living creatures on other planets, but both possibilities are absolutely terrifying. And I that is so true.
Well, I don't even know why it would be terrifying, though.
Well, to a lot of people, you think if we're all alone in this universe, as gigantic and beyond comprehension the universe is, that would be like unbelievable. It would just be like, well, if we go, then there's nothing left in the universe as far as life. Well, that's probably a stretch. There's some kind of life. Or if there's other life forms out there, what if they're considerably more primitive than we are, or if they're vastly technologically advanced than we are?
I'm sure both exist.
Exactly. So you don't have to worry about the caveman aliens coming. It's the super high-tech aliens that may or may not like us.
Well, yeah, but you also have to consider, what would their opinions of us really matter in the grand scheme of things?
Whether or not they blew us up.
Well.
Or ate us.
Yeah, but it's like would you blow up a planet just because you don't like ants?
Yes.
Well, then be afraid. Be very afraid.
Of course I would. I mean, come on, who wouldn't?
But if you were that advanced, would you have those, I don't know, those fears, those I don't know, xenophobic tendencies?
Have you ever had a lot of ants all over you?
Yes.
Okay, well then wouldn't you blow up the planet?
No.
Well,
No.
that's because you're a bleeding heart, Marty. That's why I love you so much, man. You got a lot of heart.
Well, the ants are just, doing what they do. They've got the hive mentality. It's what they do. They crawl along their scent trails. Is it because they don't like you, or they're doing the things that they're doing because they despise you, or because they're chemically induced to do so?
I think they despise. I know for a fact that ants stay down in their holes, some of them as many as 30 or 40 feet underground, and I know that they talk about me. I know that they plot. Every time I walk by an anthill, I look down and go, "You plotting on me? You plotting on me?" And they ignore me. Like I don't exist. But I know what they're doing.
Well, hopefully, as a civilization grows in complexity, and as beings evolve, as you would say, they would maybe become less and less aggressive. Because if you think about it, if you attain a type of technology that allows you to either go toward a more peaceful route or a more maniacal route, so to say, whether you're going toward the darkness or the light. If you're going toward darkness and you're building your technology out of fear, okay, say they've got the Dr. Mike Uber atomic bomb.
Oh, geez.
Or the Dr. Mike Uber thermonuclear weapon, right?
Sweet.
More than likely, since they're achieving their goals through fear, they would probably destroy themselves before they would ever reach out into the great expanses of the universe. It would only be those that were delving into the lighter side, the side of good, the ones that are more peaceful in nature, they'd be the only ones that would survive. It's like, yes, they're very powerful, but they're also very benevolent as well, because, they're considering all living things. And those are the only ones that would survive.
So let me ask you this. You've heard the old saying, I might get it wrong here, in an insane world, it is hard for the sane man to appear insane. But in a sane, how does that go?
An insane world seems sane to an insane man. A sane man sees it says it all, really.
Yeah. So which world would I fit in?
A sane man in an insane world would look insane.
Right. So which one of those two particular things do you think I'd fit in best?
Oh, boy. I don't think you're insane.
Thank you. You're the first person to say that to me.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's good, right? There's one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't wait to get home and tell my imaginary friends what Marty said tonight.
There you go.
So, speaking of insane friends and imaginary friends, my friend Captain Howdy and, of course, Captain Trips, they'll be waiting for me. But anyway, let's get into the life, death, demon, spirit, dimensions, interdimensional worlds. Now, you had told me before when we were talking about people passing, and we both have had experiences where it was near death. I think in your case, you actually crossed over and came back.
Yes.
And it's not my place to really say anything about it. If you want to talk about it, that's fine. If not, that's cool. But in situations like that, you said, when we were talking about it, that there is, in fact, medical, scientific, psychological evidence that there is something beyond this physical shell which we live in.
That's right.
Would you care to expand on that?
That actually came out of the research into a substance called N-dimethyltryptamine.
Yes.
Also known as DMT. They call it the God molecule. And it was through these experiments, and I believe these happened in Santa Fe at the university there.
Well, Santa Fe has the university, then they have 3 or 4 private hospitals outside their regular hospitals.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no idea. I've been there many times. I have no idea what those other hospitals are for. So I imagine there's all kinds of weird shit going on down there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. In fact, there's a special on Netflix, and it's DMT. Just look it up. You'll find it.
Does they make that in Kool-Aid?
Well,
a flavor? Never mind.
DMT flavored Kool-Aid?
Or STP or
no,
whatever.
No, it wouldn't work.
I know, because you told me you have to have a certain chemical to actually absorb it.
See,
so let's tell everyone how to do that.
This is a really in-depth conversation, and we're going to go around a huge roundabout to get to where we need to go.
All right.
Okay, N,N-dimethyltryptamine, also known as DMT. It has to be either injected or it needs to be given as a combination with a sort of tea. And the tea that they give it to you in is called ayahuasca. And ayahuasca tea, it inhibits the enzymes in your stomach, okay, because DMT breaks down very quickly. And if you take it without the ayahuasca, your body, the enzymes in your stomach, they break down the DMT very quickly, and it's never absorbed into your body. DMT, by the way, is naturally produced by every single human being naturally. And your body produces it in 2 separate occasions, either when the body is under extreme physical duress or at the time of your demise, your death, which, of course, is extreme physical duress.
I'd say.
And so what's amazing about this, and another author, his name is Graham Hancock, mm-hmm. he wrote a book called Supernatural, and he talks about N,N-dimethyltryptamine, and it's a dry read, but he also did Fingerprints of the Gods, which is also another very dry read. But if you can hang on through it, it's worth it. It's worth what you get in the end. But anyway, the ayahuasca tea it inhibits the enzymes so that your stomach can actually absorb the DMT into your body. And once your body does absorb the DMT, DMT is the most potent hallucinogen on the planet, period. In fact, there was something released by the Brazilians just, I think, this week. And ayahuasca is part of their treatment plan for criminals. That once they are introduced into the criminal system, the ayahuasca is introduced as part of your rehabilitation.
What?
Yeah, that just came out. I saw
Why, are they
that
giving
article.
them DMT or something?
Yeah, as part of their treatment plan, they're given DMT because if you've read Supernatural, people who experience DMT have some very unique experiences.
Well, let's go into that. Let's talk about, because you had some experiences similar to DMT, but yours was natural, correct?
That's correct. In other words, when you die, DMT is released, and I died twice back in 2010. And when at the time of death, your body's flooded with DMT, your brain releases it, and you have experiences. Some of the experiences that people run into usually form very similar patterns. One of the experiences is you encounter beings that have almond-shaped eyes, very similar to the extraterrestrials.
The alien people.
Yeah, the aliens that people see, things like that. They encounter these beings, and these beings do these horrible things to you.
Okay.
That's one of the DMT experiences. Another one of the DMT experiences is you find yourself popping out of your body, and you're in a different location. And in this different location, time seems to stand still. 1 second might be a year or 5 years or longer. There are people that have been in this DMT-induced trance, and they think that they've been there 25 years only to come out and they were out of it for maybe 10 minutes.
Wow.
So the place where they go, they realize that everywhere they look, at first glance, it looks like a wall. But you soon realize that it's not a wall. And it's like this wall is a sphere that surrounds you in all directions, 360 degrees by 360 degrees. Imagine yourself in this large sphere, and you're at the center. You're at the core of this large sphere, and the sphere's hollow. You're in the middle. And all around you is this wall. Everywhere you look is this wall. But then you look at the wall and you realize that it's not a wall, that everywhere you look on the wall is a set of eyes.
Oh my God.
And you are completely surrounded by others. You're not alone. You are in this collective, so to speak.
Okay.
That's one of the experiences. Another experience that people run into with DMT is an experience with a serpent-like creature, one that's it's almost pagan in a theme, because imagine yourself in the deepest, darkest jungle. And there are vines everywhere. There's green everywhere. Everywhere around you, there is nature. You're surrounded by green and jungle and overgrowth, and you're in it. And as part of this jungle, you encounter these beings or being, and they're serpents, they're snakes, they're reptile or reptoid in nature.
Okay.
And they talk to you. And the majority of these experiences, you have, Christians would call it a come to Jesus.
Yeah. In
other words, you are confronted with yourself.
Right.
You are forced to look at yourself from the outside, which in itself is a pretty amazing thing. And this is probably one of the reasons why the Brazilians are introducing it as part of their treatment plan. And from what I understand, it's working very well.
It's almost like the Aborigines of Australia have this thing that when a man comes of age, then they tell him to take whatever supplies he needs and start walking across the great desert.
Right.
And you walk and you walk and you walk until you meet yourself.
Right.
And basically, that's exactly what you're talking about. You come to terms with who you are, what you are, where you want to be, how your life is, how your life has been, and how you want your life to be.
Right.
And then you can return to the tribe. Some people, it's a month, some people it's a year, some people it's many years.
Right.
But you're talking about having this experience kind of encapsulated almost at a spiritual or ethereal or interdimensional type of session.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Graham Hancock goes into a lot more detail about his experiences. He was an avid user of marijuana at the time. In fact, his relationship with marijuana was one of an addict. Okay.
Oh, wake and bake, huh?
Yeah, he was not a recreational user. He was a frequent user to where his relationship with marijuana was all-encompassing. His entire day consisted of, everything that he's doing is for the sake of getting high. He would schedule his entire day over his getting high. He would write a book so that he could get high. Everything that he did was as a result to get high. And when he started delving into DMT, he thought that it was just another kind of high, so to speak, only to realize that when he went on his DMT visit, his experience, he was faced with his addiction, and it was in his face. His addiction was staring at him, and all of a sudden he realized that, oh, wow, I didn't think I was an addict, but I clearly am, and it was very apparent to him. And it changed his life because he's no longer an addict, and it changed him.
Now let me ask you this. Based on what I'm hearing and based on what you're talking about, I think many people would believe that he's actually crossed into a different dimension.
Yes.
Whether that tunnel is through the mind and the spirit. If anybody knows anything at all about, let's use the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament, as an example. In Genesis, the first book of the Bible, and in Revelation, the last book of the Bible, they don't declare arrows, good Lord, angels as these creatures with wings and all this kind of stuff. The actual spirits, the actual angels that they're talking about are beings of light. They're not male, they're not female. They have no specific gender. They are strictly creatures of light and energy, and that's what it says in the Bible. Now, a lot of people say, well, they talk about winged creatures. Okay, whatever. But when you take a look at the actual translation from the first and last book of the Bible, it is in fact talking about creatures of light, okay, and how they can cross. When God allegedly, as the Bible says, God created man, so many people talk about God as a he. But in the actual translation it says, and so we created man in our image.
That's right.
Okay, not one entity, not one being, but it says, and so we created man in our image.
That's right.
Now, you're talking about one dimension or one plane of existence looking down into another plane of existence. Let's say the ethereal looking into the physical plane. Are you thinking that this is what happens with this? Like when we die, when we pass on, we actually, the self, the entity within, the soul, the being, whatever you want to call it, the spirit, moves on to something else?
Well, why don't we take that just a step further?
Okay.
Because these studies out of Santa Fe, one of the things that they discovered is that consciousness, they can no longer say that consciousness resides between your ears anymore.
Right.
And so all of a sudden, science is now giving substance to spirituality.
Right.
Depending on what religion you believe in, some people call it heaven. Some people call it an afterlife. Some people call it the Akashic Records. In other words, there is an existence beyond this life.
Okay.
Science is now, for the first time, agreeing with that.
So let's take a look at this. If you notice in this new movie, or I shouldn't say new movie, the remake of the movie Poltergeist,
Yeah.
in the beginning it says that the brain and the body is electrical, which it is. The heart is electrical. The brain is electrical. And in this little interlude to the movie, it says that what happens when you die to this electricity. Well, okay, that's a fantasy movie, but it does raise a very good question. So physical beings or physical creatures pass away of the physical form.
Right.
So what makes the ghost, what makes the things we call demons, things that go bump in the night, things that scare us, where people have the idea that, oh, this is the ghost of a person who didn't pass, who is waiting to pass, or this is a demon that came back to cause trouble. Because from my perspective, why would anything, whether it be of some unknown origin or anything, come back just to really fuck with somebody, or just to fuck with a house, or whatever? To come back and say, well, I'm dead, and instead of going to this great expansion of the universe or the mind or other dimensions, I'm going to stay behind and scare the hell out of these people.
Right.
Okay, so where do these things allegedly come from? Especially, let's talk about the spirit, the human spirit. You know, do they come back because they want to come back? Or do they come back because they got lost along the way? Or do they come back because they're just being real assholes to everybody around them and wanting to mess with them?
I'm probably the wrong person to ask because I have a different spin on things.
Okay, then let me hear your spin on it. You know?
As when it comes to things like that, my perspective is very different. And anybody that knows me realizes very quickly that I don't think like everybody else.
No, you don't. That's what's good about you.
I'm a very odd bird.
That makes you even better.
I think that we are spiritual beings having a physical experience.
Yes, I agree.
And that these bodies are basically remote-controlled vehicles.
Yeah, mine seems to be broken a lot.
That are, well, it happens, that our brains aren't the repository of all of our experiences. Okay. The whole research into DMT is also showing that it is not the repository that we thought.
Okay.
That more than likely, what our brain is a transceiver. That it's this radio that allows us to communicate with this other place where the controller of who we really are is. Okay, to where this isn't really who we are. This is just our avatar, our physical presence here.
So this is us on the physical plane.
Exactly.
And there's another one of us in the ethereal plane, the spiritual plane.
Exactly. But this is not who we are.
God, I hope not.
And, because if you think about it, scientists go, okay, well, if we get this probe and we drill a hole in your brain and we stick this probe in this section of your brain, it makes you do this.
Right.
Right? Or it affects your memories this way, or it affects your mind this way. Well, if you were to do the same in a transceiver and you start monkeying around with the signal, which is communicating back to the origin, you're going to get very similar things. But of course, since you have no way of getting outside of this physical existence, you're not going to be able to see these other things. You are going to assume that certain things are true because you have no way to experiment. You have no way to get outside of the physical existence to show that there is this other layer to it.
Okay.
But the results will look the same. Do you see where I'm getting at?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that when we die, when the physical form falls apart and ceases to exist. So the remote control device, we're just these remote controlled cars with batteries in it. And eventually the components are going to fail.
Right.
And then it's not going to work anymore. But the person with the joystick and the radio is still over there going, hey, what happened? It's not working anymore. So that's kind of my perception of what's going on. And then that leads us to, okay, well, if that's true, what are ghosts? What are these other things? What are these things that we see going on? Because I know you and I have talked about some hauntings and some things that we've seen.
Absolutely.
We're going to go visit a haunted fire station here pretty soon. And I have been told that this place is not just haunted, that it's freaking haunted, man.
Yes.
That it's insanely haunted.
Yes.
And as someone who's been to many haunted locations, I used to live in a house on the east side. I'm not going to give the address because so many people are listening. But I will tell you that whenever a woman would come visit this house, strange things would happen. My mother came over to visit, and it got so cold in the kitchen that you could see your breath. And It's just, that's, in my definition, that's really freaking haunted right there.
Yes.
When something can suck out the heat of the air and make it cold, there's something going on.
Yes.
But is this in fact a deceased person that's doing this? Or is it some other kind of entity, some other sort of creature, whether it is interdimensional, whether it is some sort of creature that may be some sort of parasite that feeds off of emotion. There are things in this world, on our earth, and this is just our earth. There are things that happen here that we don't know, we can't explain. There are things that we will never know. There are creatures that are here that we will never know about, even though they're living. The mountain gorilla is just an example. We've only known about the mountain gorilla since the 1900s. Before then, they didn't think that they existed. The coelacanth is another one. We thought that the coelacanth was extinct for 65 million years. We thought that this thing was just some sort of exhibit in a fossil, and that all of a sudden, in the 30s, they found one. Yeah. A fisherman caught one. It's like, whoa.
And to date, they've got over 40 of them.
Yeah.
And they have found in certain places in Africa, in lakes and rivers, there are plenty of coelacanths, and they haven't changed since their 65 million year old fossils were found.
That's right.
They're still the same, and they've lived a long time.
And what I'm suggesting is there are things. Some have called it high strangeness, that there are things that are out there. And
yes.
I think that they want us to believe that this is something supernatural, that these are deceased people, but I don't think that they are.
Well, Albert Einstein described these types of things in the actual paper. I mean, he just, he talked about physics, applied physics, hypothetical physics, and he even came up with the idea and the thought process, which became very well accepted, called spooky actions at a distance.
Right.
And it talks about these very same things. And what you're talking about, okay, let's see if I can put all this in one thought here. There are many civilizations, long before Christianity, long before Catholicism, long before Judaism, long before Islam, there are civilizations. Maybe hundreds, maybe thousands.
Right.
But we go back to some of the bigger ones that we know about, the Nazca, the Sumerians, these places. In Sumeria, they used to write, and in Egypt for that matter, they used to write about creatures that were not human, that lived amongst them, that taught them, that instructed them. Some were good, some were not good. Some were intelligent, some were not so intelligent. So King Solomon in the Bible talks about having these creatures that people call demons that could lift massive stones with one hand and help build the temple.
Right.
And so people just said that, well, these things are demons, but they were considerably larger, bigger than men, and could float above the ground and do these things. Now, we're talking about multiple civilizations, multiple belief systems that never came in contact with each other, that never knew about each other, that didn't trade with each other, that didn't even get discovered until in more recent times when they dug up these civilizations and so forth and so on. Yet all of them seem to have in their some level of their belief systems the flood myth, with a word which makes it more than a myth now.
Right.
The world flooded, but we're talking about thousands and thousands of years before the biblical flood. We're talking about thousands of years before the Judeo-Christian belief system flood or the Islamic belief system. So these things happened a long time ago. Who's to say that some of these creatures or these entities or whatever they were, whether they were, people talk about a good example is Lord of the Rings. There were dwarves, elves, there were humans, there were wizards, there were the nasty little people, the goblins and the orcs and so forth. Who's to say there weren't multiple civilizations on this planet at one point? Who's to say that we didn't have greater civilizations than we do now many thousands of years ago that destroyed themselves? Now, people say that's impossible because we would find signs of it. Well, Actually, if we had some type of a war and it wiped out mankind, in 80 years, give or take a few years, all signs of civilization of man would be gone, except for the biggest skyscrapers. You give them another 60 or 70 years, and they too would fall and crumble. Another 100 years, and you would never be able to tell that there was such a modern civilization on this planet unless some other archaeologist came from another place or a new growth of human expansion and evolution and started digging this stuff up. Okay? So I think a lot of these things may very well be creatures that have lived a long time ago that are still around. And I can't think off the top of my head of any physicist from the early 1900s to today that does not believe that there are multiple dimensions in and around our I'll say our Earth, okay?
Right.
I went to a lecture at the Peterson Air Force Base that was attended by multiple Air Force and other military people. And this doctor, this scientist, this physicist, talking about 29 dimensions.
Right.
29 dimensions that the Air Force and the Department of Defense have touched upon. And some of these are like stepping through a wormhole, they believe, to another side of the galaxy, stepping through a wormhole to another side of the universe, stepping through a wormhole into another parallel dimension on our Earth that's all around us, but we're not part of it. We can't see it. It can't see us, but it's there. Some much more advanced, some different. Some with reptilian beings, some with higher mammal-type beings. And so these are things that most of your religious people will say, bullshit, doesn't exist. There's only God. There's only the New Testament, or whatever Islam says, or whatever, the Judeo Talmud, whatever says, because their focus is so narrow that they want to believe. They want to have this. They want to say, this is how it is. And if you don't believe me, I'm going to burn you. I'm going to cut off your head. I'm going to burn your cities to the ground. I'm going to drop an atomic bomb on you because you don't believe like I believe. Because their minds are so damn narrow.
Right.
But if you open your mind and see, whether we go to this haunted fire station where we're going, or whether it's Red Crags, which is supposed to be a highly haunted hotel, or whether it's some of the graveyards like in Denver, where they that's a long story. We could do 3 shows just on the graveyard up there and what they did to those poor souls who were buried there. Who's to say that those things are not just as real as us? We were talking the other day, and you brought up the old saying, is you stare into the abyss and you find the abyss staring back at you.
That's right.
What's out there? What's in there? What's it all about? And so I believe that whether it's through this chemical that you're talking about, or whether it's through an actual passing, that once you've stepped out of the physical body into the spiritual or ethereal plane, that there are so many doorways and so many passages that you could meet and see and go and do so many things.
Absolutely.
It's not just, if you die and you were bad, if you were a really badass person, a real mean, nasty person, then you're going to have some catching up to do, okay? Whether it's karmic energy, whether it's spiritual energy, or whether there's a supreme being who's going to put a hammer through your head, okay? But I don't believe that when you die, you go to, like, oh my God, you masturbated. You're going to go to the eternal lake of fire, and for all eternity, every day, every second, you're going to feel your body burning. I'm much more in a belief of like the prodigal son. You go out, you make your mistakes, you come home, and my God would like grab you by the neck, pitch in a little headlock, kind of give you a noogie on the head, go, come back here, you crazy kid. What are you doing? Come on, straighten up. Let's get back to it. It's all good. It's all good. I forgive you. And go on. I can't think of the theory, and the people say you must fear God. You must fear God. If you fear God, you fear everything. You fear your own thoughts. You fear your own actions. You fear your own everything. You don't give enough money to the church. You don't obey the dogma that was preached to you by the place that you go to worship. Oh my God, for these things you'll have to pay. I don't buy it. I don't buy into that. Why would a supreme being need your money? Why does a supreme being need you to go blow up a mosque or blow up a Christian church? Why? If they wanted it done, they just kind of blink, boom, it's finished, okay? He doesn't need us to do these things. Or when somebody dies, oh, their work was done early. What, God didn't have a plan? Like, okay, you're going to do this, this, this. I'm going to, oh, they're finished early. Okay, kill them. Take them. Give them cancer, let a train hit them, whatever. No, I mean, that's just a belief system based on dogma of men's thoughts to make themselves feel good about what they're doing and to be fearful. And let me tell you something, man. I have found that the people in those types of organizations that scream the loudest and preach the most vicious about a certain thing, whether it's pedophilia, homosexuality, theft, whatever, they're the very same people that's doing it. Maybe it's self-loathing, self-hate that causes them to say these things. But usually the ones that scream the loudest are doing the same thing they're talking about. It's like Occam's razor. Usually the simplest answer is the right answer.
Right, and one of the things about that, too, is that growth can't happen through fear.
No, of course not.
And fear oppresses you.
Yes.
And when you're oppressed, you can be controlled.
Absolutely.
But, and that gives substance to your argument about it being more about control than about spirituality.
Yeah.
Because when you examine it on a spiritual level rather than on a religious level, the spiritual level will tell you this. Your physical form is very limited as far as what it can experience.
Yes.
Because the senses that we have are only able to detect and to experience a very narrow band of reality. Our eyes can only see a very narrow band of light.
Yes.
Our ears can only hear a very narrow band of sound. Our sense of smell can only detect a very narrow band of smells. Taste the same. You know, our sense of taste is the exact same. When you look at it, taste actually has more to do with smell than actual taste.
The olfactory senses.
Right, because taste in itself is only like 4 things.
Yeah.
And then you talk about touch and pain. You've only got so many levels that you can experience in that. So out of all the 5 senses that we have, it's this very narrow look or insight of reality. And our universe consists of so much more than what we can see, hear, taste, touch, and smell.
Well, it's like having a box of crayons. It's a little basic box they give you in school that has 8 colors.
Right.
I think it's red, blue, yellow, green, brown, orange, black, and purple. But then you go and you get the deluxe box of crayons, and there's like 82 colors. And you're like, oh my God, I thought there were only 8 colors. No, it's so much, much more that's available to us in one form or another. I think it was Karl Marx, if I'm not mistaken, who said that religion is the opiate of the masses. And I'm not talking about spiritualism or believing in a higher being or believing in something out there, whether you want to call it God or whatever, but religion, man-made, dogma-driven, going to, why would there be, if there's one God, why would there be Mormons and Catholics and Protestants and Islam and Hindus if there's just one God? Why would they all have such a massively different interpretation of it, about what's what and what's not and what's going to happen to you? It's the organized religion that is structured to benefit those who structure it, to benefit those who find it,
it's a
to
method
be the
of
leader.
Control.
It's absolutely a method
and that's
of control.
what Marx was talking about.
Right.
He's wanting to use it as a template.
Yes.
And this is all about his method of controlling the masses.
And God forbid if you disagree with any one of them, then, you're hellbound.
Right.
You're on the express elevator to hell because you didn't believe what they said. You didn't believe what they told you. It's like the Westboro Baptist Church in Kansas. I've seen a lot of stuff that they've done, a lot of stuff that they've sponsored, and oh my God, geez, I mean, I could say a lot of stuff on that. If there's a domestic terrorist group that needs a target to practice on, by all means, go there. But these people
Wow.
these people are vicious. They're absolutely totally vicious. And the worst part is that they're all related. They're all related. It's like interbreeding central. And they're proud to tell you that. They're all fucking related. Oh, I married my cousin who married my brother, and then my brother married my other cousin, my sister married my grandpa. And he was like, I see the problem here. Yeah, you have a very narrow perspective on things, don't you? And that's just one. We could talk about Jim Jones, David Koresh. I don't want to discuss David Koresh with you again. Okay? We had that discussion for 2 hours the other day. But there are an awful lot of people out there, and their sole existence in a form of religion is control. Control, control, control. And I believe it's so far beyond that. Have you ever read Carlos Castaneda in The Way of the Warrior?
Castaneda, yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing what the Native Americans had believed and how similar all these different tribal things were, all the way from North America to Central America to South America. They all seem to have the same track. They all seem to have the same basic belief system. And they use a lot of stuff to expand the mind, to enter into these worlds. And I believe it was Carlos Castaneda had said that you go into the spirit lands sometimes until the day comes that you go into the spirit land and don't come back, which is death. And it's very interesting to read and study, because not once they say, and while you're in the spirit land, you have to give 10% of your income to the church.
Right.
And you have to do what the elders tell you to do. And I could sit here and tell you, I know a very good friend of mine who is, when she was 28, she joined a church in Phoenix, Arizona. And in this church, it was a huge church, thousands and thousands of members. And she's a very beautiful, blonde hair, blue-eyed girl, and she wasn't married. So the church said, well, one of our elders wants to marry you, and he's 33 years older than you.
Is that all?
And they said, you have to marry him. So this 28-year-old girl marries a guy who's 33 years older than her. And I don't know whether she wanted to or not. We never really discussed it in depth. But she told me, well, yeah, the church wanted me to, and they were the elders, so I did it. I was like, so basically a perv saw you and said, I want a piece of that.
Maybe
and the
she
church
was into it.
I don't know. You get a lot of people who want to believe something, who want to believe something so badly that they believe, well, these guys are elders. No, they're not really elders. They're just the founders of the church, and they were the gang that started it. So now they get all the power and the money and the nookie and everything else that they want because they're the elders. They're the bosses. They're the religious leaders in the church. Come on. Come on. I don't have anything else to say on that. I just don't.
Ah. Yeah, I think I'm kind of jealous.
Jealous of what?
Yeah, I think I want to be a religious leader. Yeah.
You probably could. I'd hang out with you, but, as far as...
I think Hugh Hefner is a religious leader.
In essence, he is.
Yeah.
In essence, he is, yes. I just don't want to get hooked up with somebody who's extremely charismatic who says, well, in order for you to be part of this, we have to take a long moonlight walk together and get to know each other.
Right.
Like, okay, I've had a lower GI before. I don't really need this, okay? I don't really need this, all right? You can take it and shove it up your ass. I don't want to believe something that bad. Or in order to get to where I want to believe, I have to do all these other things in between that have nothing to do with my religious and I say religious in the sense of spiritualism, not religion in the sense of organized religion. In order to get there, I have to do all this other crap.
Well, those people have a tendency to prey on people with weak minds.
Some very weak-minded people. You want to believe, they'll do anything to believe.
Yeah, and sadly, there are many people on this planet who are very weak-minded.
Well, take a look at Jim Jones' cult. I forgot what they. No, that was Heaven's Gate. Was another one.
Oh
where
yeah.
People castrated themselves.
Yeah.
With a pair of shears.
Yeah, and they had to have like $5 in quarters.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What?
In order for you to make your spiritual journey, men had to castrate themselves with a shearing scissors, or whatever they're called.
And you had to wear a certain pair of tennis shoes.
You had to wear a certain brand of tennis shoe, and you had to have $5 in quarters. Now, I know that in ancient Greece and Rome, you had to have 2 copper pieces to pay the boatman to take you across the river Styx.
That's right.
You have to have like money for vending machines and stuff too.
Yeah, well,
like $5 in quarters.
You never know.
Like he says, okay, we're halfway across. We're gonna make a stop here. There's some vending machines over there. If you want something to eat, go for it. I mean, that's bullshit. I mean, this is bullshit that's piled up high and deep. They're not even using shovels or snow shovels. They're using fucking bulldozers to pile this shit deep.
Yeah.
You know. And then you get to the other one I was actually trying to think of outside of Heaven's Gate, was Jim Jones. Almost 1,000 people gave up everything, their home, their property, their cars, their money to him, and then followed him down to Ghana in a godforsaken jungle just because he said to do it.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, we see that. We see that everywhere.
Man, if I was a religious leader, I'd be like, you need to buy me this new CD.
Yeah.
You need to buy me a movie ticket, okay? I need an oil change. I mean, I wouldn't go so far as to say, let's go to Ghana or North Pole or something like that, because I don't think I would like that, you know? But these are, like you said, they want to believe so badly that they'll do anything.
And sadly, it's not just the religion aspect. The religious aspect of it, because there are people who are willing to believe anything, and there are so many people who are willing to tell you that this exists or that exists. They'll tell you, well, the universe is this age because, well, we've done the math. Well, how do we know your math is any good? Well, because it's peer reviewed. Well, how do we know the people who peer reviewed it, they have math skills that are any good? I don't know.
Well, the peers that they're talking about are the people that started this belief with them.
See, exactly. They are the elders of which you speak. But it happens across many topics, many subjects, many everything. And you know what? I think what it comes down to in the end is it's an experience. It's the things that we experience. And the majority of what we're told is all bullshit.
Well, if you watch the special on HBO and Showtime about Scientology and how deeply ingrained those people are in this one belief system, that they'll leave their families, they'll leave their children to believe in this. I have come up with my interpretation of these types of people. When you're that encased, that narrow-minded, that focused on this one belief that you cannot see beyond it, you're a nutsack. Okay, you're a walking nutsack. You can't see anything because you're totally encased in this belief. And every time I hear this on TV, like this preacher recently, last week or the week before last, who was preaching death to gays, death to homosexuals, homosexual marriage will burn in hell, all these people, and they got hold of his Grindr account, and this guy was a ravenous, perverted, chicken-chasing homosexual who was like boning any and every guy that would let him, performing every act. Now, if 2 consenting adults do it, I don't care. You know, just don't invite me to sit in your room and watch you, because I don't want to know if it appeals to me or not. I don't agree, okay? But good, happy for you. But all of a sudden, this guy, they threw him out of the church. He stepped down from all the positions he had, his community positions, because you know, he all he taught was hate, destroy, anti-gay, anti-homosexual. And it turns out that he was probably the most flamboyant, ravenous homosexual that has ever taken a pulpit or ever taken a podium.
But are you even surprised anymore?
No, I'm not. But the point is, if you're going to hate or do something like that, Jesus, at least you can do is steer clear of the very thing you're speaking about. If you obeyed his law and what he was preaching, where would he be right now? He'd be hanging from a branch, burned to a crisp.
Well, you know.
What? You want to say, go for it, but You're way too PC, Marty. Fuck it, man. Say what the fuck you believe, man. Let it out there.
You
People
live
wanna
by the
hear it.
sword. You live by the sword. You die by the sword. If one of the things that upsets me the most on this planet is hypocrisy.
Oh, hypocrisy.
To me that's the worst sin of them all.
Yes.
Because it's when you're telling people that you can't do things, but yet you go and do them yourself. And some people have themselves fooled to where they actually believe their own crap, and to where they think that, oh, I'm not really doing that. No, yes, you are. You're really doing that.
No.
They are in such denial. I think that individual that you're talking about is one of those people to where, yeah, he's, maybe he's even had some sort of mental break to where he's doing these things and he's not even aware.
Dude, you swallow a sword and you know a sword's in your throat, okay?
Yeah.
All right? Simple. I have
Why
friends,
can't I breathe?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I have friends from high school and college, and when I got my doctorate's degree, I knew a lot of gay people who are still my friends. And they've invited me to gay bars. They've invited me to lesbian bars. I've gone. I wasn't afraid, like, oh my God, I'm going to catch something. No, I enjoyed their culture. And in return, they enjoyed mine. Now, true enough, I took them to a Three Stooges festival, which was entirely different than that. I don't think they really got it, but nevertheless, we shared. I don't care what they do as long as they're consenting.
Right.
It's up to them. It's not up to me. Do it. Be fine. Be happy.
It's their life. Exactly.
It's their life. Exactly. But when you got all these other people just preaching hate and fear-mongering and all this kind of stuff, there's a lot of things I like to say, but you'd probably just edit it out of this show. But even with me and you, when we do things together, whether it's going out to eat or something, and you say, oh, I ask you, what's that on your plate? Well, it's this, that. Oh, I don't like that. I'm not going to say, oh, well, Marty, he's my partner. He's my buddy. He makes the show happen. He does all the tech stuff, and we talk and everything. Oh, Marty likes it. I'm going to eat it. I'm going to say, fuck no, I don't like that. And you looked at me and say, what is that? Well, this is something. And you're like, oh my God, I wouldn't eat that. That's called reality. That's called being. It's not like, well, if Marty says that you want to eat a poo-chew drop, which is a slang term for dog shit covered with chocolate, then I need to eat some poo-chew drops. No, I don't think so. I'd be like, well, you enjoy that, buddy, and don't forget to brush your teeth.
Exactly.
It's simple.
You really should brush after that.
Yeah, I mean, come on. That's basic reality. Somebody says, well, you would like to come to I've had this guy here who's asked me a dozen times to come to his church. Oh, come just visit. And I'm like, well, I don't believe in that. Why should I go and pretend like, oh, this is cool, when it's your life. It's not mine. I don't dislike, I don't hate you. I don't think you're weird. You go, you enjoy, and I'll go my way in that particular thing.
Right.
And then we can go shooting together. We can go to dinner together. We can do whatever we want to do. But I'm not going to go hang out in a place where I'm uncomfortable, and I simply believe that everything they're telling is a control system bullshit. Why should I?
Oh, and we're passing the plate around.
Yeah.
Why don't you contribute?
Exactly. I went to a very, very, very close friend's funeral who was Jewish. And it was a traditional Jewish burial, it was a funeral. And there were probably 400 or 500 people there. And when they put the casket in the ground, it's a simple wooden casket, then all those who felt strongly about this person comes up before they start putting the dirt in. You grab a handful of soil, whatever you want to call it, and you toss it into the grave as to say, like, I'm helping you on your way, whatever. And I remember when it came to that Gwen and I were there, and I went up and took like 3 handful and put in there, and so did Gwen. We were the first 2 people. And somebody told us later, said, well, you guys aren't Jewish, are you? And I said, no, but I loved that person. Gwen loved that person. That was a good person. And their belief system and my belief system didn't mesh, but I still loved that person. And so that's reality, man.
Right.
You're not going to be like, and I don't know, because I've talked to the Monsignor, the father and the bishop here. And I've gotten along with them very well in the Catholic Church. But I've had other people say, well, if you're not Catholic, you're not supposed to go to a Catholic wedding. If you're not Catholic, you're not supposed to go to a Catholic funeral. I'm like, so if somebody I know is getting married or somebody I know dies and they're Catholic, I'm supposed to say, well, fuck them. You know, adios. No, I'll be there. And if you want to throw me out, do it. But go through a real person to do it, a Monsignor, a father, a bishop, whatever. Don't tell me you're bullshit because I'll be there.
Exactly. And anyway, love transcends religion.
Absolutely, dude. That is such a straight up statement. It does. It does so much. I think that when it comes to that, you have to cast away these quote unquote belief systems. You know, there was a cult not too long ago of several people who believed that God was a dishwasher at Denny's and he had like 2,000 followers. And he didn't want it, but somebody saw him and they got it together and started following this guy around and said, you're God, you're the Savior and all this. And this guy was some poor dishwasher who was like, what the fuck's going on? What is this all about? But these people were serious. You know, it's like me going to a goth rave wearing a bright red shirt, orange pants, light blue tennis shoes, and, you know, everything else going, hi guys, I'm here for you. And they're like, dude, you're not like even close. Oh, really? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're so far out of the reach. You're so far out of the norm. You're so far out of the group that people are like, wow, what the hell is this all about? And this is how this poor guy felt. But I had one police sergeant tell me many, many, many years ago when I was a police officer. I was a cop before I became a doctor. And he said, there is nothing that you can imagine, nothing that you can think of, nothing that you can bring forth from the darkest recesses of your mind that does not exist somewhere on this planet.
That's right.
And I was like, wow, that is an awesome statement because it is a true statement. You know?
Our universe is stranger not only than we can imagine.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, no, I said that wrong. The universe is stranger than we can imagine.
I'm pretty sure that's what
exactly
you meant.
Yeah.
You said it in the short Marty term, the transcript, you know, quickly, like a court reporter. But there are many, many things. When you talk about ghosts and demons, are they really that? Do they really come back just for you? There's a place down there where they go, I think I'll go torment the hell out of Marty. Or I'll go do this. I believe there are dark forces. God, yes, there's dark forces.
Yes.
And you were talking the other day the difference between Satanism and necromancy. Satanism is a hedonistic lifestyle.
Right.
That's kind of crazy, wild. Hey, you know, go to town, skin the bastard, whatever. Have fun doing it, okay? But it's not really a bring forth a spirit type thing. It's a mindset. It's a lifestyle. But when you're talking about necromancy, you're talking about calling upon dark forces of the earth, of the universe to come forth to do something. Like the Necronomicon book, which I would never even own or even open. But, I mean, that's that kind of stuff. You know, you look at a Satanist, and I know people who are Satanists. I'm like, yeah, whatever, dude. You know, go on your hedonistic cruise or your hedonistic island retreat. Whatever, dude. Knock yourself out. Have fun. Send me
Satanists
pictures.
are over there having an orgy versus the necromancers are summoning demons.
Yeah, and they're like, you know, have fun, man. Send me pictures. Then this dude over here is like, I'm raising the dark force of so-and-so or whatever, and something truly happens, and I have witnessed it, and I'm like, well, you have fun because I'm running as fast as my ass can go the other way. I don't want any part of it because this is some real shit, you know? And so you take a look at these different things. Titles. What do you slap on it? You know? What kind of title do you put to it? You know? If somebody says, I'm a Satanist, come over to my, okay, I go over. And they're raising the devil or they're raising dark forces. I'm like, dude, you lied. Okay, I'm out of here, you know? And or somebody says I'm a necromancer, and you go over there and they got like 6 people naked piling up on the couch, like, you know, you lied to me, dude. You're a freaking Satanist, okay? Have fun, send pictures. I'm out of here. But yeah, there's dark forces and there's good forces. I think the Buddhists said, how do they say it? There is no wrong, there is no right, there's no good, there's only perception, and you pay for that perception through karma and deeds. And I think one of the greatest things I've ever read was put out by Albert Einstein again. And it said, reality is not, okay, we do not see reality as it is. We see reality as we perceive it to be. And that is so true.
Right.
You know, you could tell me, Mike, let's go have dinner. Okay. And I say, yeah, let's go do that. Okay. Now, I'm not sure where I'm going with this, but bear with me. And so we'd look at it and I say, okay, let's do this. Let's go. Let's have fun. And you say, well, I'm going to go to this restaurant where they serve insects and all this bunch of stuff. And I say, hell no, I'm not doing that. Let's go over to Golden Corral and what, whatever. It's just perception of what we're trying to do, what we're trying to say is how we perceive things. You might say, well, bugs are good. I love bugs. Toast them, honey them, roast them. And I'm sitting there going, dude, not in this lifetime. We're seeing things entirely different. I don't know if that made any sense if you want to edit that whole piece of shit out. But the point is that, you take a look at things and, yeah, we see things the way we want to see things. Is the glass half full or is it half empty?
Yes. Yes,
So-
it is.
Exactly. So we're going to be doing some stuff and filming it. It'll actually be not a live feed, I don't guess, but it'll be filmed
Yes.
on several haunted locations with several nationally known ghost hunters who will be there to be interviewed and talk, and then we'll do our own stuff. And also some people who've actually run or supervised or overseers, whatever you want to call it, of these haunted places to tell what the history is and why. Just real quickly, like in Marymount Castle in Manitou Springs, it was a French priest who was there long before America was discovered, when the Spanish... People don't understand. There are 500-year-old churches throughout New Mexico, Colorado, Texas, hundreds of years before it was ever discovered by the quote-unquote pilgrims, okay? They were here. They had churches. And apparently this French priest who had come with the Catholic Church, with the Spanish, had set up Marymount Castle in Manitou. And he used to hang people in the main room, whip people, rape women, rape children, kill people for the fun of it if they rejected his belief, whatever. And they say that the death and the debauchery that went on there could fill volumes. But they won't allow you to film there because of the history and because it truly is supposed to be so haunted and all this bunch of stuff. But they won't allow anyone in that place. But we're going to go to several places like that.
Right. Well, I think, as part of our discussion tonight, I think that these entities that we are discussing, they either feed upon these traumatic events. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And when something that emotional, that horrific, as we would call it, I think that if there are entities that are interdimensional, that are able to see time as a different thing, to where time to us is this linear thing, but to them, time might be encapsulated there, and it might draw these entities there. And just because it happened 100 years ago to us, this other entity, it might seem like it's happening right now to them. So just because it's linear to us doesn't necessarily mean it's linear to these creatures, these things that are called poltergeists, these things that are called demons, succubi, incubi, these things. I think it's a lot weirder than we can ever imagine.
Oh, absolutely. Last night I was watching a thing. This MIT professor said this particular computer program he had can process 600,000 problems or 600,000 equations in a second. 1 second, 1,000. That's it. It's done. It did 600,000. He goes, but imagine if you were there, if you were inside that machine and it could think like us. That 1 second would be a lifetime.
Right.
Because it had 600,000 things to process. I mean, that's some pretty heavy stuff. What does time mean to me? What does time mean to you? What does time mean to these other entities or these other beings? What?
Right. It's all relative.
Absolutely. I
It's
agree
all
with
relative.
that. I agree.
And it depends on your perception.
Yes.
All those things tied in. Everything that we talked about tonight, all tied in, wrapped up in a nice, pretty little bow, also known as After Dark with Dr. Mike.
Well, Marty, thank you so much for tonight. It was great. I hope everybody enjoyed it. And we will be back at you. And hopefully Gwen will be back to do the hot spots again with the weird news and some of the strange things that really make us go, what the fuck? Or WTF for short. So thanks again, Marty. This has been After Dark with Dr. Mike. Thank you so much. See you later.
Good night.